Hi, Gerhard Bloom, once again looking at the tyranny and the delusions of the social justice movement. So I'd like to look at the issue of the pornification of society, and this is having absolutely disastrous consequences. And it may seem initially that this is a largely male problem, and it is true that addiction to pornography is a male thing, right? Vanishingly few women get addicted to porn. Men are, and young men in particular, are highly susceptible to pornography, the siren song of porn. Why? Because men's sexuality is, men are susceptible to visual cues, visual stimulation, highly susceptible, and novelty. Visual cues and novelty. This is why, Playboy with the pictures of the naked ladies. And men didn't keep one Playboy magazine, look at the same naked lady over and over again. No, they get multiple magazines with naked ladies, right? And then Playgirl came along. Well, why can't the women have the same fun as the men? And yes, you would have women run out and buy as a gag gift a Playgirl magazine for a friend's birthday party, and the women would huddle around and laugh, but women didn't buy the magazine. Do you know who bought the magazine? Gay men bought the magazine. So men highly susceptible to pornography for the reasons discussed. The other issue, men are becoming addicted to pornography. And this is a serious problem. Pornography hijacks natural kind of evolution reward, the reward system, the natural evolutionary reward system, right? I remember as a young man, in a romantic moment with a female for the first time, this was highly stimulating, needless to say, and it's supposed to be. Well, pornography hijacks that system, much like cocaine hijacks the dopamine effect, right? You get this rush of dopamine when you just pull down a mastodon. You and your friends, your co-hunters, pull down a mastodon. The alarm bells are ringing in your natural reward system. Now you can snort a line of cocaine. And so with pornography, as with drugs, the parallels are identical. You get the phenomenon known in addiction circles of tolerance. What was once highly stimulating, and because it was new, and it becomes increasingly less stimulating over time. Right? Much like if you're in a committed relationship, you've had intimate moments with your partner, hundreds of times. Not as thrilling as that first time with that partner. So it's nothing about the partner's beauty or abilities in the bed. No. For men, novelty is itself its own reward. And so now you have various forms of pornography that are just, they are socially destructive and deeply disturbing, and various forms. I was reading a book on the subject of pornography written by some leftist. It was highly disappointing, right? Because no evolutionary understanding or theory was embedded there. This woman thinks this is all new to men, right? No, men everywhere and at all times, novelty cues and visually stimulated, everywhere and at all times. I was reading this book. The one redeeming feature in this book was where she discussed this young man. He happened upon the most debasing pornography. I can't go into it. It was absolutely horrifying. One woman, several men, vile, disgusting, unbelievable. And this young man was repulsed by it, as any normal person would be, but slightly intrigued. He then reported, this was under the guise of a study, the scientific study being done, and this woman discusses this in her book. He became intrigued by it, and it led him down the path. He can't get sexually aroused apart from this. Debasing, humiliating. I had a friend just today, that's why I'm discussing this issue today, it's fresh in my mind. He said, well, this shows you what men really want. No. This is creating a market, creating a need that didn't exist before. Recall, that man's first reaction was repulsion, then intrigue, and remember this notion of tolerance. So this guy needs more and more debasing and just awful. But he could have picked what's behind door number two. Door number two, increasingly younger women and then girls, and yes, sometimes infants. Child pornography, right? This isn't very, very vanishingly few men have this natural proclivity, but it can be reinforced and constructed by virtue of this same path of novelty and heightening the thrill factor, which means younger and younger children, more and more violent, damaging. And I'm not giving an excuse to these people. I'm sure you're aware, my thoughts, up against the wall, right? You rape a child, up against the wall. And I'll let you, creatively imagine what I might mean by up against the wall. And here's a very interesting fact, for me at least. I hope you share my interest. Porn searches, if it's Pornhub metadata, searches for trans and transgender sex, obviously, more than quadrupled in 3 years, from 2014 to 2017. By 2018, the trans genre was the fifth highest search term. Imagine that, if you will, and reflect on the fact. And I've spoken about this previously. Men are uniquely susceptible to paraphilias. That's a fancy pants way of saying kinks, like child pornography, like autogynephilia, right? These men get a sexual thrill by appearing as though they are women. No, not cruelly trapped in the wrong body. These are getting a sexual thrill. And the pornification of society, this is manufacturing this particular crisis. And I think it is a crisis. On the other side, yes, women, very vanishingly few get addicted to porn or even express much interest in it. But, some do. Very narrow parameters of interest in their case. But for women, imagine this guy trying to establish a meaningful adult relationship with a young woman. Not going to happen. He can't sexually function without this particular stuff. Or the trans man, right? Or transgender woman who's a man, and literally trying to morally coerce, and sometimes more than just morally coerce, lesbians into sleeping with them. This is happening. And child abuse. But let's bracket this for a moment, right? This radical end of this. Here's the evolutionary logic behind men braving untamed frontiers, risking their lives. Why? To gain social status, standing, right? Wealth and social standing. This might surprise you. It shocked me. Most men in our evolutionary past did not mate. They were completely shut out of the mating game. Why? Because they didn't acquire the social status necessary to get them a mate. On the other hand, successful men, highly successful men, mated a lot. They had a lot of available women to them. And the monogamy, here's the interesting fact about monogamy in relationship to all of this. It guarantees virtually every man gets paired up with a woman, right? Fosters social cohesion and work. So men need to acquire social status to get a female. And yes, getting married, raising kids, it's there. But young men, they want to get laid, pardon the language. But this is a reality. And to get laid, young men needed to go out and acquire status because men pursue, women select. And they are not going to select some major loser. So the men want sex, you got to earn it. And it used to be, and my views on this have swung 180 degrees. I'm like, whatever floats your boat, get out there, be happy. No, this is socially destructive. Men now, rather than pursuing status, they're in their mother's basements, masturbating, eating Cheetos. This is happening. Young men are having far less sex with real women than they have in the past. It's declined dramatically. Why? Because the cheapest available sex out there is porn. Costs you nothing, and you don't need to require any social status to get it. Young, successful males, they're doing very well in the mating market. And moms used to warn their daughters, right? The man is not going to buy the cow if he gets the milk for free. These young, successful males are getting plenty of milk. They're not committing. For young women now, this might surprise you. Across, I think, 48 of the United States' 50 largest cities, young women are out-earning and outperforming young men. And at every level of educational achievement, women are outperforming academically men. Like grade school, academia, PhD programs, outperforming men. Now the question becomes, who are they going to pair bond with? Evolutionary theory, social psychology has long understood this. Women marry across the social hierarchy and up. Men marry across and down, right? Men don't particularly care if a woman he meets is working in a shoe store. She's attractive, she's intelligent and articulate, he's got a good job, he'll marry her. But imagine for a minute Al Bundy, what is it, Married with Children? Very funny show. And Al Bundy, a working man's hero. But I digress. A young, successful woman, she's a lawyer. She just graduated Stanford Law. And here's a young man happily working at a shoe store. Intelligent, great wit, decent human being. His job is an honorable job. Every job has its dignity. But there is zero chance that she pair bonds with him. So who is she going to marry? I talk about this entire dynamic in my book at length. There's a growing phenomenon now of women choosing to have babies alone because they can't find committed men, high status, who are willing to get married and to commit to a family. This is awful because the shocking reality is that the outcomes for kids raised by single parents is negative. There's all sorts of cascading negative effects. And I've discussed that in other videos, so I won't belabor the point. But yes, this pornification of society, it's awful and it's taking men to very dark places and it's having very negative social consequences. And you want to understand more about this particular phenomenon, please do check out my book, Deconstructing Social Justice. Not important because I wrote it. I wrote it because the issues could not be more important. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Bye-bye now.